So it's not a question of like a dad being upset.
Right.
It's like, no, this is normal. We have to teach our child, okay, it's not healthy to eat dirt, and we have to learn no, because there's going to be other behaviors that come along that the word no is important for.
Right.
I think of a toddler running down the driveway towards the street
Right.
at 1.5,
Right.
2 years old.
You want to be able to say
no, so that they know that they have to stop whatever it is that they're doing. Right?
Yes, yes.
It can't be, you don't always have physical, as a parent, physical control.
Right.
Okay, so now the subject of discipline comes up.
Okay.
We talked about training one time. Now let's talk about discipline, because discipline is a different subject than training. Discipline happens when your child, your little one, is exhibiting a behavior or doing something that you do not want them to do.
Right.
And so you have to, well, it's kind of a training, but this is entering the realm of correction.
Correcting wrong behavior.
We want to change this and eliminate it.
Right.
All right.
Right.
Or veer it in a different direction. But so that enters into the subject of discipline. All right.
Versus, again, training is just what is going on all the time, whatever you're conditioning your child,
Yes.
the environment.
All right. So I remember the first discipline.
Our first encounter with the need to discipline.
So our firstborn son was 10 months, 10 and a half
10 months old.
I remember we were in the living room, and over behind the chair in the corner of the living room, we had a large
on the ground, a big pot.
one of the mother-in-law tongues they call them.
Which we did get rid of because they are poisonous.
Yeah, the leaves are technically poisonous.
But
I
we
guess.
had this dirt.
This big pot with dirt.
That our 10-month-old
Our 10 months. So he would
gravitated to.
So, to my surprise, he was attracted to eating dirt. Now I've seen that since.
Yes.
In other children, but for some reason he wanted over there, and the first time I saw them, like, he's eating dirt. He's eating dirt. So I'm like, well, this can't be. Obviously we don't want our child eating dirt. So I go over and I take him, lift him up. I say no. He's only 10 months old.
Yeah,
and I bring him back to the middle of the living room and I put him on the floor. Mm-hmm. And then he proceeds within 30 seconds to crawl back to the plant to get more dirt. Like, oh, no. Back to the middle of the floor. He was
very persistent.
This probably happened 7 or 8 times at least.
On that particular occasion. And then he happened other occasions. But so the initial training is important to teach them the word no.
So I'm teaching him the word no. All right.
Right.
Now, I don't expect him to understand that. He's 10 and a half months old. Not fully, and not right away, for sure.
Yeah, well, you don't know what they understand.
Well, I was thinking, this is going to happen quite a bit, because this is a whole new concept to him.
Right.
He's going to have to learn the word no.
Right.
Right. So it's not a question of like a dad being upset.
Right.
It's like, no, this is normal. We have to teach our child, okay, it's not healthy to eat dirt, and we have to learn no, because there's going to be other behaviors that come along that the word no is important for.
Right.
I think of a toddler running down the driveway towards the street.
Right.
At 1.5, 2 years old.
You want to be able to say no,
so that they know that they have to stop whatever it is that they're doing.
Right?
Yes.
Yes.
It can't be. You don't always have physical, as a parent, physical control.
Right.
Let's say you're standing next to your child, you have 2 children, you have 2 hands. Well, you can hold their hands, or you can pull them back. But what if you have a situation where
you have something in your hand and
the child is out of reach and running towards the street,
and you see a car
coming? You want verbal control, right?
Right.
You want to be able to say no and have them, understand that. All right. So this is not a question of like, I'm upset with my child. This is discipline in the sense of they have to have disciplined behavior, and we have to have disciplined behavior in order to train them. So
and let me just say, when you say no, there has to be a contrast
between
your normal interaction and your telling them no.
So the tone.
So it's not a
no, honey.
Like, oh, honey, you don't want to do that. You poor little thing. No, you don't want to eat that. that does not do any kind of...
No, that's like...
Because that's like, oh...
That's affectionate
that
talk.
sounds nice.
No, the no
it's
is...
no, and then affirm, you're not hurting them, but affirm so they realize this isn't normal.
Right.
This is contrast to the normal, loving, affectionate
And let me say something
behavior.
to fathers here, all right? The male voice is deep, all right? And if you give a deeper, stronger no, that sends a signal to a child. No. Now you're not angry with the child. You're not striking the child. You're just saying no. It's a purposeful emphasis with a deep sound and a little more volume that they say, oh, different. Something is different here.
Right.
This is not the normal.
It's the same thing with the woman,
Yeah.
with the mom.
Yeah.
It's using a different tone.
Right.
That deeper tone tells you, oh, this is different.
Right. So we were successful in changing the dirtying behavior after a couple days.
Well, it might have been a little longer than that.
I don't remember.
But
it's a while
yeah,
back.
it's hard
It
to
seems
remember.
like me a couple days.
But we did get control of it.
We did get control
Now
of
I
it.
have to say, discipline, parenting, is not for the lazy.
It's not for the lazy.
Discipline needs to be 100% consistent.
If you want to have a well-disciplined child, safe behavior,
Right.
and polite, and you have to be consistent,
Right.
and you have to be willing to work.
I understood this, I think, just from my growing up. My father was a disciplinarian. I learned from him that you have to be consistent. With Michael, my first,
Yeah.
I was 100% consistent. I remember there were times, as he got older, other issues came up rather than just dirt. There
Yeah.
were other behaviors that we didn't want. And even though I was tired, I'm like, I can't let this behavior go. I have to,
And why is that? Because if you're inconsistent,
then behavior will continue.
right,
It will continue. If you're 100% consistent,
it will change.
you can nip it in the bud. As I said before, by the time they're 2, you can have a very pleasant child.
Right,
If you've been training and disciplining.
right.
If you haven't, the terrible 2s, which everyone always assumes, oh, this is just normal. No, it's normal if you haven't been.
Right. And another thing,
Discipline.
parents have to be consistent with each other. You can't have a good cop and a bad cop.
Right.
You can't have a child going to mom because dad is saying no, or a child going to dad because
Right.
mom is saying no,
Because
and
one is
knowing
soft.
that they can get a different answer.
Right.
That is, that's the end of the world for me. You
Yeah.
do not have that in your house.
Right.
We
Parents
have to be
unified.
unified and agree.
I back him up, he backs me up.
Yeah, even if I don't necessarily am not sure that, well, I don't know if I agree, but if
If it's
Ann said
said,
it, I back it up, all right?
Right.
Because you have to be consistent.
Right.
The child has to know the parents are united front, right? They love you and they
Right.
are agree that how we're going to raise you.
Right. I think of, the whole thing, the alpha dog.
Oh,
You have to be in charge.
right.
Sometimes, parents, you get to this stage and you have your own insecurities. And so... But-
Sometimes people don't like how their parents disciplined them, and they want to change that and be kind. My dad was too mean to me,
Yeah.
so I'm going to be kind.
Yeah.
Well, there's of course we want to be
Of course,
kind.
you
Kind.
want to be kind, but you do need to discipline.
There are moments of discipline.
Yeah,
Can I give a couple of examples?
sure.
All right. As I remember, as our second born, we used to go to pizza, on Saturday nights, right? And we'd have, for the little one, we'd have one of those snap-on chairs that snapped onto the table so we could, like a 1-year-old.
The old ones are way better than the new ones, but they don't sell the old ones.
The old ones were metallic and
Just snap on, they were great.
So anyway, one time we went to the restaurant for pizza. We were in a booth, snapped it on. Our second child, little girl, was in the seat and decided she was unhappy and started to wail. It wasn't just like, It was like a purposeful, I'm going to make a fuss.
Crying in restaurants is
I
unacceptable.
will not accept crying in restaurants.
Other people are paying
I'm
to have a
embarrassed
nice
by that.
environment to eat in.
I don't want to sit and eat with a child crying, and I
Right.
know nobody else wants that.
Right.
As soon as that started, within 5 seconds, I had her. Remember, discipline is different behavior, right? It's not your normal sweetie talk. It's like, so I grabbed her firmly by the torso and lifted her out quickly out of the seat. It's like she's feeling something's different here. Dad's holding me pretty tight. And I brought her through the door to the outside of the restaurant, set her on the ground, scooted down on the ground, put a finger in her face and said, "You will be quiet. You will never cry in a restaurant. Never. And if that happens, you're going to meet, even think about starting that. Children, they may not have your vocabulary. They know what you're saying, even if they're not talking yet. They know what you're saying. And I told her, you're gonna really suffer the consequences if this. I don't know what I was going to do. But I was giving her the warning.
Right.
The
tone.
the riot act warning.
This is not. You're normally very pleasant,
Yes.
soft,
I'm an easygoing guy.
very easy. So this is something different.
Yeah, I mean, so I would, so then I took her back in and put her back in her seat. She was fine.
Right.
I'm thinking, thank God, she
Right.
believed me.
Right.
And then another time,
Yeah, I was thinking of.
we were visiting your aunt down in New Mexico,
Yeah.
and we had 3, right?
Right.
Or 4.
No, we.
No.
I don't remember.
I don't know, but our third,
Around 18
our
months.
second daughter, our third child,
Yeah.
was 2.
No, she was 18 months.
18 months. And your aunt was very particular. She was an older woman with her husband, and they had.
She wasn't too crazy about little kids.
She was a little
had
worried
5
about little
children,
kids in her house. So we're trying to be we're there visiting,
Right.
and they set up a little table,
We were out on they had this nice porch.
screen porch.
They had a table for the 4 of us.
I remember we were having
And she
tortellinis
had these little tables set up
for the little ones.
like a little desk.
So
type thing.
we had I think 3 children.
Right. It was 3.
3 children, little ones, at that table. The youngest was 18 months. Well, the youngest decided she was going to she didn't want to sit there.
Right. She was not happy.
She was not happy, so she started screaming. I did the exact same behavior, knowing that your aunt was not feeling it, right? She's like, I don't
Right.
want a child screaming at my dinner.
Right.
I did the
Again,
same thing.
same thing.
I firmly picked her up, held her tight, walked her off the porch into the house, put her down in the living room, and read her the riot act. The same exact thing. Finger in the face, didn't touch her. Finger in the face, and gave her the dad warning. You will never behave like this. Da 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 da. And I said, so are you going to eat? She, nods her head. So I said, okay. So I opened the door. We went back out to the
she's
porch.
walking. You're not carrying her.
I'm not carrying her. She
She's-
walked back, sat down, and behaved like a little angel.
Right.
You know why that happened? Because we were consistent. I never would put up with that.
Right.
And then your aunt and your uncle, who were both educators,
Right. So he was a principal. of a high
and she was a
school, and
teacher.
She was yeah.
and they're like,
Like,
I have never
what-
seen that.
what did you do?
Like, I just told her she had to behave, and they're like, I've never seen that before, because she went out, screaming, and she came back a little angel.
Right.
And the only reason that it's not that our kids are special, because we are consistent.
Right.
I would never allow those behaviors.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
you can't be lazy.
Right. Because what happens if you're not consistent down the road? What will happen? So inconsistencies, they still understand that they can get away with it some of the time, so they will try to get away with things some of the time.
So like later in life, when you have a 5-year-old, and you say, if you do that again, then, and let him get away with it the first time, you're saying, I'm going to let you get away with that once
Right.
or twice,
Right.
and they know that, okay, I can do this once or twice before I'm disciplined. But if you see a behavior you don't like and you react immediately, you don't need a warning. They just need to know, hey, Dad's upset or Mom's upset with
Right.
this,
Right.
So that's, you never give a warning.
Right.
Never give a
Right.
permission.
Right. Now, another important thing to realize is your own emotions have to be in check.
Yes.
So training and discipline, the parents' emotions have to be in control.
Remember, this is not an affront against you.
Right. Parents, you can't take it personally.
Right.
I remember when my son, I don't know how old he was, but under the age of 15, I was very frustrated with him, whatever was going on. And, I could see my emotions were
15
out of
months,
check.
under the age of 15 months.
Right, 15 months, under the age of 15 months. And, I was feeling really angry. And I could see if I didn't have my emotions in check, I could hurt my child.
Yeah.
Okay, warning bell goes off. I took him, you put him in a safe place. I brought him down the hall, put him in his crib where he's safe.
Close the door.
Close the door because I didn't want to hear his screaming. And I threw myself on my bed, and I realized I have a problem, that my emotions were out of control.
Yeah.
And I just cried out to the Lord, Lord, help me. What is at the root of my anger? And of course, the root of my anger was I was feeling like I was failing as a parent.
Yeah.
That.
Why is my baby crying and unconsolable? Why is he not?
So I was feeling like a failure. And to realize that, it's like, you're not a failure. You're taking care of your child.
Yeah, this is what.
So there are lies that we have that go through our mind, that if you find your emotions when you're disciplining out of control, that's when you need to put your child in a safe place and you step away and get in control.
Yeah.
And because you don't want to.
Never deal with your child in anger on your part.
Right. You don't want that. You want, when you're disciplining, you're pleasant, you're in control, and
we're talking about little ones here.
Yes. Well, even with older ones, you don't want to be out of control.
Oh, no, out of control. But I can imagine situations with a teenager where you're righteously angry at something.
Yeah. But we're talking little kids.
Yeah.
What is a 15-month-old doing that's so wrong? I mean, it can be. You're training them, you're disciplining them. So keep the emotions in check. So the first thing, as we said, is teaching your child to understand the word no. You have to be 100% consistent.
You have to be willing to do it again and again and again and again. You have to be willing to stand up and move, even if you're tired.
Right. And you just keep doing it. In the long run, you will expend way less energy.
In the long run.
If you're 100% consistent, then if you aren't consistent, you will end up spending way more energy trying to get your child to behave.
So our experience, now I know different families are different, but our experience was the first uses of the word no happened around 10, 11 months.
Right.
All right. By the time they're 15 months, then they're mobile and more discipline takes place because you have to train them to not run away.
Right.
You have
and that's also
not touch the stove.
That's also when they start. Their will is about 15 months.
Oh yes.
When they discover it, which that's a whole nother topic, but that is when they start, and so that's really when you have to be all hands on deck, consistent.
Right, and willing to work and get, even if you're tired.
Right.
To decide how you want their behavior to be and then train them and discipline them. And if you do that at 15 months, by the time they're 2 years, you're going to have the wonderful twos.
Right.
But if you wait until they're 2 years, you're going to have the terrible twos.
Right. So maybe in another time we can talk about techniques of discipline.
Yeah, we could do that.
So.
All right.
So yes, train your child, discipline your child, teach them what no means, and be consistent.
Be consistent.